Hello, welcome to Nena O'Clock. My name is Nena Otabo, your host. Today I'll be speaking on domestic violence. Domestic violence is any type of abuse that happens within a household setting. It can be abuse in marriage, abuse between people who cohabit. In the broader sense, domestic violence can be abuse against children, parents, or the elderly. Before I go ahead, I want to categorically state that conflict resolution and domestic violence are two different things. Conflict can actually exist in any relationship. That is why conflict resolution skills are very important. But domestic abuse has no place in a healthy relationship. We are first going to look at the forms of domestic abuse so that when you see domestic abuse, you can recognize it, you can help control and prevent it. The first form is physical violence. Physical violence has to do with any form of physical force against anybody to the point that it gets to harm or endanger them. We talk about hitting, kicking, pushing, spitting on, etc. The next is sexual violence. When sexual activities are non-consensual, that's when it is an abuse. When you talk of rape, then you have financial abuse. When an abuser actually victimizes someone to the point that they control how they spend their financial resources, they control how they also bring in their financial resources, that's when it has to do with financial abuse. Then you talk of neglect. Neglect has to do with when you're in a position to take care of maybe an elderly, a sick person, but due to maybe reasons best known to you, you decide on your own not to take care. You deprive them of care and deprive them of the necessities of life. That's neglect. The next one is psychological violence. This type of violence has to do with both verbal, emotional, and mental. And people in this category hardly know they are being victimized because it might not be physical, there is no hitting, the person gaslights you, so you don't really know you are being abused. So knowing these forms can help us also know how to prevent these forms. The next thing we are going to look at is the cycle of abuse. You know, most times people get so victimized that you look at someone, this person is in an abusive relationship, go out of that abusive relationship, and it's sort of difficult for the person. I'm going to give us the cycle of abuse, how it keeps on repeating itself, making it very difficult for victims to leave their relationship. The first stage of the cycle is the stage that is the tension stage. This is the stage where the tension builds up, the abuser gets so edgy, and the person who is victimized tends to walk around eggshells, trying to control the abuser's behavior towards them. In this stage, the abuser really gets very angry, just like a switch, he goes off. Then the next stage after the tension stage, actually the explosive stage, is also called the incidence stage. This is the stage where the actual abuse happens, whether be it sexual, be it physical, be it psychological, emotional, mental. This is where the abuse happens. At this point, the abuser has actually gotten to the neckline and flares up on the victimized. When this stage is over, the next stage is, we call it the honeymoon stage. This is the stage the tension has decreased, the abuser has sort of come back to his senses, he apologizes. At this point, the victimized might even tend to forget or tend to even argue that it wasn't abuse, he was angry, it was my fault, I led him to do it or I led her to do it. At the end of the day, they settle, then the calm comes. Before you know it, the cycle repeats itself. So the person is, I want to go out, the person comes back to beg, and the cycle continues. The essence of this topic is not just for us to get the knowledge. The essence is for also for us to help those who are victimized. People end up coming out to tell their stories and nobody believes them. The first step in getting someone who is victimized help is to believe their story. It gives them a form of help and a form of hope. I want to tell you, if you are victimized, you are in an abusive relationship, please leave to leave. The best thing for you to do at this point, just take this as a signal for you to leave that relationship. If you want to settle, you can do that at a later time. Leave the relationship before settlement comes. You can actually open up to someone. You can open up. You have professionals, health, legal, psychology. You can open up to anybody for help. I want to tell you, you are enough. It is not your fault and you don't deserve what you're going through. Then for an abuser, I want to tell you that violence is a choice. It can be prevented. How you behave towards another person can also be controlled. You have yourself. Nobody is in charge of you. Whatever you do, your actions, you are liable for your actions. If you believe that you are liable for your actions, you know that hurting another person will not make you better. So if you're in an abusive relationship as an abuser or as a victim, please stand up and change. You need the change. You need to make the world a better place, because nobody deserves to be abused. Nobody deserves to be relegated. This is to each and every one of us listening to me. Please, I want to implore us, if you know anybody who is abused, help the person get out of the relationship. We need them to leave the relationship for them to be alive. Then if you're an abuser, this is a call to you. You need to change your behaviors. It might take time, but you can go through the process and build yourself. Thank you, and let's make the world a better place.